All right, let's dive right in. Today we're looking at something called the Raft to Freedom program. And really, it's a framework, a kind of guide for getting through the tough stuff in life. It's designed to help pretty much anyone find their way from feeling stuck towards something like real well-being. And it all kicks off with a pretty bold statement.
Yeah, this one hits home, doesn't it? Life is inherently painful, difficult, and disappointing. I mean, who hasn't felt that? You don't get the things you want, and you get a whole lot of stuff you really don't want. But look, this isn't about being a downer. It's actually meant to be a really honest and compassionate place to start.
And dealing with that reality, it can leave you feeling, well, completely lost, kind of confused, just adrift at sea. What I love about how the Raft program frames this is that it's not saying, hey, you failed. Not at all. It's saying this is a shared human thing, a struggle that pretty much connects all of us. So, let's start our journey right there. The RFT program calls this place the dangerous shore, and this is basically where we stop and just acknowledge what's going on. We're looking at the fundamental reality of this shared human experience.
So that feeling, that deep sense of things just not being quite right, that stress, that disappointment, it actually has a name. It's what Gautama, the Buddha, called dukkha. And his whole point was, this isn't a sign you've messed up. It's just part of being human. And here's the key. Just accepting that, just seeing it for what it is, that's the first real step toward changing how we relate to it.
Okay, so if we're stuck on this dangerous shore, what do we do? How do we get off of it? Well, this is where the program introduces us to our vessel. We're going to build a raft. And this isn't just some nice idea. It's a really practical, hands-on tool that's designed to help us navigate away from that difficult shore and head towards a new one, a shore of freedom.
And what's so cool is that the name, Raft, is basically the map for the journey. It's an acronym for 4 big ideas that come from Gautama. So R is for recognize. We just have to recognize that, yeah, life can be tough. A is for abandon. This is about letting go of those harmful patterns and reactions that just make things worse. When you do that, you get to F, which is freedom. You actually start to experience moments of release from all that stress. And finally, T is for train. You commit to a program to actually practice this stuff so that freedom becomes a more regular thing in your life.
And they take this raft metaphor and just run with it, which is awesome. It makes everything so tangible. So think of it like this. Your commitment to not causing harm, those are the planks of your raft. Self-compassion and kindness, that's the rope holding it all together. The 4 stages we just talked about, RAFT, those are your sails, catching the good winds. Mindfulness and concentration, they're the masts keeping you stable. You even get a compass to direct your efforts and an engine to give you energy. It's a really complete, clever way to see the whole system.
Okay, we've got our vessel. Now let's talk about the journey itself. How do we actually put this raft into action?
So no surprise here, the journey follows that same RAFT pattern. Step 1, recognize. You just take an honest look at where you are and gather what you need for the trip. Step 2, abandon. This is where you really learn to let go of the cravings and knee-jerk reactions that fuel so much of the struggle, and that naturally opens up step 3, freedom. You start to get these glimpses of peace and clarity, and you learn to turn towards them. And the final step, step 4, is to train. You commit to the program, weaving all this into your daily life so that sense of freedom isn't just a fluke, it's something that can actually last.
Now this is where things get really interesting for me. One of the most powerful things about the Raft program is how it bridges this ancient, timeless wisdom with what we're learning today about the brain and psychology.
It's this amazing blend of old and new. So for example, Gautama talked about suffering, dukkha, and said its root was craving, or tanha. Fast forward to today, and what does neuroscience tell us? It talks about how our brain's reward system can get hijacked by compulsive patterns. See the parallel? And where ancient paths talked about mental discipline, modern science now shows us through things like brain scans that mindfulness can literally rewire your brain. That's neuroplasticity. It's the same idea, just with new language and new tools to prove it. And it doesn't stop there. The principles in Raft line up perfectly with some really effective modern therapies you might have even heard of. Things like acceptance and commitment therapy, that's ACT, and dialectical behavior therapy, or DBT. They're all built on the same foundation: practicing mindfulness, learning to accept difficult feelings instead of fighting them, and taking action that lines up with what you truly value. It's just incredible validation that these ideas are as relevant now as they were thousands of years ago.
All right, so we've talked about the starting point, the dangerous shore. We've looked at the vessel, our raft, and we've mapped out the 4-stage journey. There's really only one thing left to ask. How do you get started? Let's talk about the map and the materials.
So, the folks who put all this together are Dr. Catherine Jacob and Vince Cullen. What they've done is pretty amazing, really. They've taken these powerful ideas from Buddhist psychology, blended them with modern science, and created this single, really accessible framework for everyone.
And that brings us right back to you. It's the big question, maybe the most important one. You've seen the map, you've seen the blueprints for the raft. So, are you ready to start building?
And to make that decision even easier, the authors have made the entire guide, all 67 chapters of the workbook, completely 100% free online. You can find everything we've covered here and so much more by going to raft2freedom.org.
And just to show how much they mean it, they've licensed the whole thing under Creative Commons. You know, this wasn't an accident. It was a very deliberate choice to make sure this program could be shared with absolutely anyone who might need it, with as few barriers as possible.
The license is super simple. It basically just says, hey, give credit where it's due, and please don't use this to make money. It really honors the whole spirit of the project, which is to be a freely available resource for anyone who's looking for a way forward, a path from struggle to freedom. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.